Hey everyone, welcome to Identity Love Podcast. I'm Tracy Konane. I am a life coach and identity specialist for folks who have lost themselves in their life and in relationships. And what I do is I help you to understand what it's like to actually be you. And your true self is who you most want to be for yourself deep inside. Underneath all the layers of the people pleasing, all the self-consciousness, all the worry, there is a unique, distinct, super cool version of yourself that is under the surface just waiting to come up and out. And I help you express that and understand that and be more of that so you can be your best self while being true to yourself. So in this episode 16, I want to talk about why it is so hard for us to be ourselves and how we can actually start being more of ourselves in a way that feels fun, even the very idea. So what I want to start talking about is the fact that as kids, we are automatically put into this societal factory, right? You're born, you have parents, your parents have a certain idea about you. They instill certain values into you. They impress upon you. They give you impressions of the world and what they feel about you. They give you your first sense of identity. You go to school. Your teachers impress rules upon you. Your peers impress rules upon you. And let's just talk about real fast how rude kids can be. How just little micro things that they say that other adults don't hear, that start to eat away at our own personas, at our own concept of ourselves. For example, in second grade, I remember I sat down on the first day of school and I have all my school supplies and I'm so excited and everything feels fresh and new and shiny. And some girl next to me looks at my backpack and she's like, "Oh, your backpack is so generic." And I remember thinking, oh no, what does that mean? I don't even know what generic means, but it's something bad apparently. And it starts to eat away at me. It starts to make me more self-conscious about anything else about me that could be seen as generic, anything else about me that could be scrutinized by somebody else that I didn't even know was wrong with me. For example, I was so bad at math, apparently, that I had to go and be taken out of my class on Wednesdays to go with a tutor. And I was put in kumon, which is this Japanese methodology of helping you get better at your math by making you repeat all these math problems in a certain amount of time every single day. And it was just all about making you into something that is fitting into standards, right? You're graded, you're scored. How are you being ranked amongst your peers? The good students get to sit at the front of the line. Everybody else goes behind them and look, they're exemplary. You should be following them. My parents would applaud anything that had to do with grades or excelling at something that is performative, such as piano. And it starts to form this self-concept that we are only good according to what somebody else wants of us. All the things that made me naturally feel alive. From the very beginning, I told my parents, when I grew up, I wanted to be an artist. And they immediately said, "Oh no, that's bad. You're definitely not going to make any money doing that. Definitely not." Then I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write novels and books, and same thing, absolutely not. Sixth grade, I said, okay, I want to be an interior designer. Oh, that's really hard. You're not going to make much money doing that. Interior design isn't a really great career. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know then. I don't know. So by the time that I came out of high school, I just had a very low excitement for adulthood. I had pretty much no ambition. I actually looked ahead at imagined myself in the future being an adult, and it was just really dark and depressing. I imagined just working at some place that I didn't care about, being alone, just having this very dismal life. And I couldn't stand myself. There was all these things that I felt were wrong about myself. I was disgusted by how shy I was. Not about being introverted, but about being shy, being so scared, being so socially anxious. I felt disgusted with that because I knew deep inside that when I was feeling comfortable and excited with things, I get loud, I get chatty, I can actually be expressive and talk when it comes to the right conditions. Because I have been around certain people where it brought it out of me and I felt so excited and talkative. But then when I went out in the general public, I was so withdrawn and so quiet and scared of everybody. And I was disgusted with that. And it was because I felt like I needed something more. I felt like there was more to come out. But also it was because everybody looked down on that. They said, why are you so quiet? Why are you so insecure? Why are you so unconfident? So I was disgusted with that in myself. I was disgusted by the fact that I was so easily jealous towards my boyfriend. He would slow down his car to let a woman cross the street, and I would get jealous because I was so deeply insecure. And I felt so disgusted by how out of control I felt with my emotions. One moment I would feel on top of the world because my boyfriend had said something. Another moment, he looked at someone the wrong way or mentioned something that I felt insecure about. And all of a sudden, everything would start to boil up inside of me and I wouldn't know how to keep it bottled up. I was trying so hard to be the perfect girlfriend, but I was also so upset that he said this thing. It was like I was just not able to control myself. And I was disgusted with how unsettled I was with understanding who I am as a person. I would go through all these different phases where I was the cool skater chick kind of thing. And then I would do a punky kind of phase. And then I would do a gothy kind of phase. And I went through a rainbow wearing phase where one thing on my body had to have a rainbow on it. And I was just trying to figure out which of these is me. I didn't want to just be nothing because I felt like so much nothing. It just felt like each time I did it, I kind of felt a temporary burst of, oh, this feels good. This feels fun. This must be me. And then a month later, none of that felt like me anymore. I didn't want to listen to that kind of music anymore. I was disenchanted with it. And I went back to square one where I was just like, okay, well, that wasn't it. So am I anything? So I kept doing all these chameleon things where I kept trying to find myself in other people, in my boyfriends. I was this thing just floating in the wind, looking to land on somebody and become a part of them, or looking for something that seemed like they had it all figured out and to just copy that and be a little bit more like that. And I wanted so much to just feel like I was one of those people who knew how to be me, who just like, this is who I am. This is me, my own uniqueness, my own unique self. I just wanted to feel like I liked myself, like I knew who I was. And I was disgusted by how I would keep spending money on all these thrift shopping hauls, right? As I went through each of my phases, I had to get different clothes. And I would go to the local thrift store and get this whole haul of cheap shit that I found that I thought, okay, this is more of my style because I'm punky now or I'm more skatery now. And then in a month, I would have to just donate it all back and start from scratch again and figure out what the heck happened. And I would just feel like I wasted my time and I got nowhere with it. I was disgusted by how boring I thought my interests were. Again, I liked writing. I liked drawing. I liked crafting. I had little weird niche interests and I knew the musical Cats and Les Miserables by heart and books. And I wished that I could just have something cool like hip hop dancing or skating, like skateboarding, something cool that got me cool friends that people approved of, that gave me an identity. And instead I had all these boring hobbies. I did not like myself. I did not like these things about me. Because again, I was being told that this would get me nowhere. And as I got older, I was disgusted by the fact that I had to drink a lot of alcohol for me to finally reach a place where I felt good about myself. I felt like, oh, it's fine. I can express myself. I can swear. I can finally talk more. I can actually share more of myself because in my drunken stupor, I felt like I was fine. I was okay with myself. I finally felt that feeling that I've always wanted, which was relief and relaxing and self-acceptance and feeling like I'm cool and great. And I could finally feel so good in that moment until I'd wake up the next morning super hungover, not remembering what I did, worrying, oh no, how much of myself did I actually show? Does anybody hate me now? Is there anything I need to be embarrassed about? And then feeling self-disgust about that I needed to do that. And this is how I felt most of the time. It wasn't self-hatred because there's a lot of things that I liked about myself, that I felt proud of myself about. But it was this feeling of disgust, like, oh, why would anybody choose to love you? Would anybody actually like you if they knew the real you and how ungrounded and unsettled you are? This is what it felt like. And you too, we don't all have the same childhoods, but maybe you were pressured to grow up too fast. Maybe you had to do things in which you didn't have a chance to find your true self, or your true self was pushed down and shamed, and you weren't able to grow and find and be nurtured into yourself, the parts of you that were actually you. There's so many different ways in which it could have happened in your upbringing where you were not fostered and nurtured into what makes you distinctly you, in a way that makes you feel good about yourself, in a way that makes you feel like you know who you are. And so the frustrating thing is that we come out of this factory, this society factory, at some arbitrary age of age 18 or 21, and we're told, you are an adult now. You are fully formed. Now go out into the world and do all these great things. And when we feel intimidated or we feel nervous about ourselves or feel insecure, the number one piece of advice that we are told is just be yourself. So after putting us through the ringer, putting us through this factory of molding and shaping us and taking away traits that make us who we are, and grading us and scolding us and letting things happen to us that nobody else sees, like the things that kids say to us. After all that, when we don't know who we truly are and we're just this weirded, molded Frankenstein thing in which we're trying to just get by because we've been told that everything about us is wrong and that we have to be a certain way in order to be right and in order to be loved and liked in life, we're then told to just be ourselves. This is so immensely frustrating and confusing, and I couldn't stand it because, one, thinking about being myself as I knew myself then, with all the things I just listed that I was disgusted with myself about, to think to just be that was a setup for disaster. I was like, there's no way I could go to an interview and just be myself and get the job. There's no way I could just show up in a relationship as myself and have a good romantic relationship. There's no way I could get ahead in life by just being myself. And then two, I had never been fostered into being myself, so I didn't even know who my true self was. I thought that my true self was the person that I had become after going through the society factory. And I felt like I couldn't figure out who my true self was because I had been taught to block myself from myself. So I felt like I was doomed. Like there was no way around this. That after all of that trying to change myself and to please other people, now you tell me that the way to get over my self-doubt and anxiety is to just be myself? It is infuriating. So what happens then is we don't listen to that advice because we don't know how to follow it. It sounds crazy. And we continue to just shape ourselves. When I went to the job interview, I just showed up as exactly the kind of person I felt like they'd want to see. I said the exact things that I knew that they'd want to hear. I wore the exact things that I thought would look good to them, and I got the job. Same thing when I had the boyfriends. If I wanted to keep them around, I tried to figure out exactly what it is they wanted, what they wanted to see, what made them happy. And I gave them that, and I had long relationships. And that's what I kept doing. I just kept figuring out, what do I need to be for the situation? Who do I need to be to continue to get ahead in life, to not be left behind? Who do I need to adjust myself into? And this is what we've all been doing because we've been put through the society factory. Okay. And nobody has helped us or told us otherwise. And then what happens is you start to look for all the self-help stuff because we realize if I never want to be left behind, I just need to keep improving myself and improving myself. I just need to fix my jealousy, fix my mood swings, fix my constant changing of my style. I went through so many self-help books while I worked at the library, which was one of my first jobs, in an attempt to just fix myself in the name of being better for everybody else. And I was just like, I just needed something to tell me how to do this. I studied philosophy. I was like, tell me all the different ways in which I can think differently about my life so I can better myself. And with all these things, all these seeking that we do, it does help a lot. I owe so much to all the self-help books I've read, to all the coaches that I've followed, to all people who pumped me up and gave me some different ways to think about myself and my mindset, and who helped me to grow into more of myself and to understand myself as a person. That definitely helped so much. But what happened was, even though I was improving and understanding myself in new ways, I still felt like something inside of me was off. Like, even though I had all these skills and mindsets and new ways of doing things, I still struggled to know what it was to just be me. I felt like I was looking for something to follow. And after a long while, I realized this was the problem. It had been a good solution for many years. Okay. I'm not saying that all the things that you do for the self-help and all of that are bad at all. I think it's all amazing. I highly recommend it. Improving yourself is the most important thing you could do for yourself. But after you get to a certain point and you realize that there's still something that doesn't feel right, here's what it probably is. So what I realized is that I had been using throughout all the years other people and all these different modes of self-help as blueprints, as guides. And while they got me so far, I had never figured out my own blueprint. I had never figured out a blueprint that didn't come from somebody else, that didn't come from somebody else's ideologies or ways of doing things or advice or ways of being. For a long time, I really idolized Björk, the Icelandic singer. She wears all these amazing, super artsy, weird outfits, and her songs and her creativity and her artisticness are so unique and otherworldly, and there's nobody else like her, especially in the pop world. And seems like she's just in her own little world and just being herself naturally, and all this cool stuff comes out of her. And so as a teenager and in my early 20s, I was so drawn to this because I was just seeing her as somebody who didn't need anybody else's approval, and she was just enjoying having fun being herself. She had her own blueprint to herself, which was the clothes, her voice, what she wanted to sing about, the way she saw life. Her whole aesthetic, her whole way of being was an art that only made sense to her and looked kind of eccentric to everybody else. But she was enjoying herself. She didn't seem like she needed to change herself for anybody else. And that to me was so amazing. So back then, I remember trying to cut my hair a little bit more like hers and take inspiration from her by getting into the whole swan dress look and listening to her music and trying to figure out what it was that she had that I didn't have, that so many of us who didn't know how to be ourselves? What does she have that we didn't have? And I thought that by kind of emulating her and taking on some of that energy would make me more like her. But of course, it was just another phase that I went through for 1 month. And I found out at the end of the month that I couldn't stand it and it wasn't me at all. And it was just another dead end. So I was using my muses in a way that was too literal, right? I say it's so important to have muses, but in this case, I was using them not as inspiration, but as something that I copied, that I was trying to just use them as a literal blueprint to be myself. When of course, when you logically think about it, it doesn't work that way. Here I was looking at somebody else because she had something that I wanted. And I thought I could get there by being more like her, literally more like her. And it didn't work, of course. And it was so frustrating because it was almost like I was people pleasing the celebrity that I never even met, who isn't even in my life, but I'm over here trying to please her in some way or be more like her because that's what I had been taught my whole life. That's what we've all been taught our whole lives, is that the way that you get ahead, that you get what you want, that you improve yourself, is to figure out how someone else does it, what the exemplary thing is, and you be more like that. But that's not our own blueprint. And so we can never find ourselves by trying to be amazing according to somebody else or the way that somebody else does it. And so that is when it clicked, when I realized all these people who are out doing their cool things in their own cool way and moving through life like they're like, yep, I know who I am. I'm just me. I'm expressed as myself. What they have that I never gave myself was allowing myself to find my own blueprint instead of just holding on to everybody else's blueprint and following that. And this is what is missing for ourselves, for our own identities. Because you can come so far and you can improve yourself with all the coaching tools, with all the self-help stuff. You can come a long way. But if at the end you still don't know what it is like and what it means and what it would look like and feel like to be your own unique version of yourself in a way that doesn't look like anything else that anybody else said that you should be, in a way that feels like how you want to feel, then it is because you need to go and figure out your own blueprint. And what this requires is the exact opposite of everything we've been doing while following all the other blueprints. So if you think about it, when you're in school for the first time as a kid, you sit down at the desk and there's all these rules that the teacher enforces. And then there's all these so-called rules that the kids around you enforce, such as not having a generic backpack. And you move through life getting very serious and getting very self-conscious and very focused on what is right and wrong until you are released into the world as an adult who doesn't know themselves because of the factory. And then what? We spent our young life being so serious about trying to be better for everybody else. So the antidote to this, the way to break free now, because now you're an adult, okay? Now you're an adult. I can walk around with a frickin' generic ass backpack that I bought from CVS. I can walk around with a backpack that literally says Walmart on it, and nobody can tell me anything about it. Sure, someone can say it's tacky. Who cares? I can still do it. There's no rules. There's no rules like that as an adult. You can do anything you want. I'm talking within reason. We're not talking about murder, okay? I'm saying about expressing yourself, about being yourself in your life. There's no rules. But we've been taught from a young age that there's so many rules that you have to follow if you're not going to get punished. Rules that don't make sense to our soul. Rules like if you give into your creativity and if you pursue writing and if you pursue what actually makes you feel alive, you're not going to be successful. That's no longer a rule anymore. I can do whatever I want. If I want to try that, I'm going to fucking try it. And so in order to find out what rules don't apply anymore and what rules we want to have for ourselves, new rules, new ways of being, right? We'll just say ways of being because it's so much more liberating. In order to find out what works for us, right? If we are actually free, if we're actually not as contained and smashed down as we thought we were while growing up. In order to find ourselves, in order to undo all of that tenseness that we got while being raised, we have to do the opposite and relax and play. And it's going to feel really weird. And it reminds me of the meme that's been going around that's like, fuck it. And then it says something really bizarre and random, like, fuck it, soy sauce packet on the wall. And there's a photo of that. Or like the one that I looked up before I did this podcast, I was like, what's a good example? Because I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, of course. And it's like, fuck it, hentai lamp. So it's stuff like that, where it's this feeling of just like, fuck it, this, right? Fuck it, this is this and this that make no sense, but here it is, right? Anything goes here. That's the feeling that you need to have when you're finding your own blueprint. And this can feel absolutely bizarre to us in the beginning. It did to me. I felt like I was jumping off a cliff and just, I don't know, running through the streets dressed like a clown. Like I felt like I was just doing something so ridiculous and so risky and so nonsensical, when all I was doing was relaxing and realizing that there were no rules. No rules for being myself. And that I got to decide. I got to decide what the rules were. This is when I started dyeing my hair all one color. I was turning, I think, 30 at the time. And the rules of society say, oh, by that age, you're definitely not supposed to have any kind of punky colored hair. You're supposed to be professional and all that stuff. And I was like, fuck it. Purple hair. My whole head. I had dyed my hair since I could get my hands on hair dye out of high school, but I'd never done my whole head. And here I was in my 30s dyeing my whole head. I think I went red first and then I went purple, but it felt so good. Once I did it, and I was like, fuck it, all one color. I felt so good. And it made no sense to anybody. My parents were like, what the heck? I don't know what my boyfriend thought, but it just happened. I was like, this is what it is. And same with the animal print, which I ironically don't have any on today, but for the longest time I was drawn to the animal print clothes, but immediately this voice in my head, this rule from my past, this thing, I don't know where I picked it up. It said, oh, that's so tacky. It's going to be tacky. It's too loud. It's obnoxious, whatever. But one day I was like, fuck it, animal print, because I like the way it looks. And immediately these feelings come up within us where we feel like we need to defend ourselves, where we feel like we need to explain and be like, well, I know I'm wearing this outfit, but well, I just like this. And I've always liked big cats. And so I don't know, I guess it just makes me feel a little bit more fierce. I don't know. That's what it feels like inside, where I feel like I need to explain and defend myself and try to just explain to the world, hey, nobody have a problem with this, okay? Because I know that it could be seen in the wrong light. All these things come up because we think that there's all these rules. And sure, somebody might think that. But all I know is that when I started to break all these rules and say, fuck it, anything goes, let's see what happens. What am I drawn to? It relaxed my soul enough for my soul to point to these different things that made no sense in the moment. I was like, what? You want me to wear that? You want me to do that? You want me to be interested in that? Oh my goodness, what's going on? It feels like you're driving out of control and all of a sudden doing all these bumper car stuff after going down this very organized and serious highway your whole life with all these signages that say happiness this way as long as you follow the road that everyone else is going. It feels like you're jumping on some funny clown car and going off in some weird, bizarre land. But it felt so good to finally get to break free and actually do stuff that my soul was saying it wanted to do and that it was drawn to. And so this is what it's supposed to feel like. Is it's supposed to feel like you're breaking all the rules in the most nicest way possible, saying, you know what? I'm going to do things that make no sense to anybody else but me. And I'm just going to play and have fun with it and see how it feels to me. Instead of checking with everyone else, which is going to happen. It's definitely going to happen, but you have to bring it back to yourself. It was just me realizing, oh my God, I feel so self-conscious doing this thing that feels bizarre, but it feels like I finally get to express myself. And that within itself is so good to my soul. After all the years of feeling constricted and being put in a box and feeling pressure from all sides, it feels so good to just relax and say, fuck it. Fuck it, fluorescent lime yellow hat. And this is when I started to see myself come out. And I never could have pictured what myself would have looked like when I was being myself, because I was just so structured by everybody else. So if you cannot imagine what your fully expressed self looks like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you have been put in this box with all these rules, and you have to start pushing out the walls of the box so the walls can come down and you can finally explore and find and choose all the bits and pieces that make you uniquely you, that make you uniquely expressed. And a lot of times it's following things that don't make any sense at all to anyone else. And even if it's just for the name of self-expression, it changes something in you. Changing my hair color, changing the way I dressed, it finally made me feel like myself, like I could see myself, like I was finally visible again in my own eyes. And I think the last time I was visible in my own eyes was when I was 4 or 5 or something like that, right? When we're little kids, we know who we are. We feel so good expressing ourselves. We don't care. We know that we are allowed to be bizarre and eclectic and only make sense to ourselves and be nuanced and distinct and inexplicable. And we take so much joy in that. And it's so much fun. And that's why when you see kids' personalities and tastes come out at such a young age, everyone's like, oh my God, so precious. She knows who she is. She has all these, she knows what her favorite color is. She knows what she likes to wear. And then that all gets shoved into a machine and thrown on the conveyor belt, and you come out and that girl is all of a sudden really self-conscious about what everybody thinks of her. Isn't that so sad? So what we do is, instead of trying to change the conveyor belt and change the whole construct of society and the machine and all of that, there's only so much one can do. You have to start just doing it within yourself. Say, you know what? This is the way it is right now. I'm going to save myself anyway. I am going to break free out of this box that I was molded into, and I'm going to explore all the parts of myself that I wasn't allowed to explore when I was younger, and it's never too late. It's going to feel crazy and scary and uncomfortable and a little bit insane at first. But after you start doing it and give yourself that little private joy of starting to see yourself come to life, there's a bit of glee that comes forth. And it almost feels bad, like you're breaking some kind of horrible law, because all your life you've been told that you need to follow these particular rules. But now you're starting to find the ones that make sense to you. I discovered that there's ways that I like to be in life, such as I'm really easygoing and forgiving and go with the flow until certain boundaries get hit, or until somebody starts to manipulate me or take advantage of me. And then I suddenly get very hard, and I draw a hard line, and I either cut them out or I leave the situation. And I notice that I like being that way. Before, I didn't know how to handle myself in different situations. I'm like, well, how do I know when I want to stop being so nice? Or how do I know how to handle it? But now, after figuring out and listening to myself and putting different parts of myself together that I thought wouldn't fit, I realized you can do it any way that you want. You just have to figure out which way works best for you. And for me, I want to be pleasing to people up until a point, but I know how to handle myself when things start to push up against that. And I am rigid with that. And so the badass part of me comes out only then, only when it's necessary. And the rest of the time, I'm very open, and I like to adjust myself to others to some extent, but never while erasing myself. So there is an art and way of being yourself that nobody else can tell you what works for you, until you start to do it yourself and explore and play around and allow yourself to try different versions of yourself out that you've always wanted to try, but you never were allowed to. And this is where you start to realize how it actually feels to you. And while doing this, it should feel like play. It shouldn't just be like, okay, what am I going to try? I'm going to make a list and check it off and be very serious about it. You can be organized, but it's the feeling behind it, the energy behind it. You have to be allowing yourself to relax and let yourself come out and allow things to be mismatched and to flow through life, seeing yourself as an experiment and as an art in progress. Because you are art because of the way that you show up in your life is an experience. Art is an experience, right? So the way that you think about yourself, the way that you express yourself, even just the things you say, the way that you feel about yourself. There's that quote by, oh my God, what's her name? Helena Bonham Carter that says, I believe everything is art. I'm butchering this, but she's like, everything is art. The way that you stack your books, the way that you stand in line, stuff like that. I remember reading that quote and thinking, oh my God, that's exactly how I see it. You choose your art. You choose the way that you present yourself by the way that you are being yourself, by the different intricacies of yourself that you find by not letting yourself have all these self-imposed rules of everybody else. And this is how you find yourself. This is how you be yourself more, by having this serious play. You're not going to find your identity by being super serious and trying to please everyone else at the same time and trying to make sure that you still fit in while still trying to find yourself. You have to allow yourself to get a little eccentric in your own way. You have to let yourself be more expressed as you in a way that feels like you are freeing yourself. And that is what we need to do in order to start finding our own blueprint, finding what works for us. So much stuff has changed since I started doing this. Once I started to find my own identity through my own blueprint and realizing that there are certain things that I just inexplicably like, and I just have to do that, and I have to dress that way, and it's going to bring something out inside of me without even realizing it. And it's just been this whole exciting exploration and discovery. All the things that I had self-disgust with earlier have all either improved drastically or gone completely away. I no longer go thrift shopping and hate everything that I bought a month later. I didn't have to go and figure out how to stop being a shopping addict. I didn't have to go and figure out. I actually bought a black book of style. It was called the Little Black Book of Style with all these high fashion illustrations in there. And they're like, you need the little black dress and the crisp white button up shirt. When I was trying to, I'm like, just someone help me find my style. That didn't work, of course, because that was someone else's rules. I had to find my own rules. So now I go into the stores and I know immediately, pretty much off the bat, I'm like, yes, this is what I like. This is what is me. I finally know what is me as far as my style. And I didn't have to fix it by addressing any other rules of how to do it. I had to do it from addressing myself, from knowing who I am. I no longer think that my interests are boring. They're the exact same interests that I've always had, but now I see it in such a cool way because now I understand how I make my own interests cool to myself. It's not just writing that I'm into. I like specific kind of weird exploratory fiction writing that I'm working on right now that makes me feel so alive in myself. It's not just trying to do art. I thought that in order to be a good artist, you had to go and make super duper, super realistic, lifelike paintings that look just like photographic reproduction. And that is so cool, but it's boring to me. And now I realize that when I do art, it might be really simple art. It might look kind of kiddie drawing, but it feels good to my soul, even though it's not the maximum of my potential of being a super detailed, highly realistic artist. Even though it's not that, it is what makes me feel good. And I love it so much more now. Now I understand what I like to do. And so I no longer think I'm boring. I no longer have to drink because even though I like a drink once in a while and it is still super fun, I no longer have that need to go and find myself and find relaxing and self-acceptance in myself by having a drink. I no longer have to feel interesting by getting drunk. Once that was alleviated and I already felt interesting as myself and started to like myself and started to see myself more, I all of a sudden no longer needed alcohol to make me feel like I was more interesting. And so that within itself helped me so much to cut back on my drinking and fix my drinking problems. My emotions got a lot better from doing all the self-help stuff, but they still felt out of control because I felt jealous when I thought that my boyfriend, he wasn't as into me as I thought he was. And I was still relying on him because I felt like I was nobody once the relationship was not in the picture anymore. So I was still holding on to him. But once I understood how to be myself and I feel fun and enjoying of being this version of myself that is actually me, I no longer rely on him so much. It is so weird because I thought I'd have to do all this deep healing and just to make myself super gorgeous or something and somehow make myself so I'm better than all the girls that I'm jealous of. And I no longer have to do that at all. I still like myself, and that just makes my emotions so much more even keeled. I don't get jealous easily anymore. Don't get me wrong. I notice and I'm like, okay, she's pretty good looking. Okay. But it's no longer this, oh my God, no kind of feeling. And it's all because I now feel good being me. So the jealousy got so much better. The emotional aspects got so much better. And the social anxiety, it still comes up. There are still moments where I'm with certain kinds of people that trigger it somehow. And I suddenly feel like my mind is going blank and I don't know how to be myself. And I feel super self-conscious. That still comes up. But generally speaking, in general, when I'm going out, I can feel like I am being myself much more freely than ever before in front of anybody who I'm coming across without me feeling like I need to hide myself and tuck myself under something that's more appropriate and change myself to according to whoever I'm talking to. It's just naturally gotten a lot better because I like being me and nobody else can take that away from me. Now that I know how good it feels, nobody else who can come along and be like, oh, I don't agree with this. I have my own blueprint for you. You need to follow this. Nobody else can convince me of that because I already know how much better this feels after all those years of pleasing others. And no one can talk me out of it because I'm having too much fun and I'm feeling so much purpose and too much fulfillment to be deterred and being told that I need to be, I don't know, more quiet, swearing less, carrying a Chanel bag. I don't know what it is. I already am enjoying myself so much that all those other problems that came from me not knowing how to be myself have all been so much better. And now I finally understand what they mean when they say, just be yourself. I finally understand what it's like when they say there's no one else better to be but yourself. I always wanted to understand that. And I felt so stubborn as far as wanting to understand it. But now it makes sense. Now I see it feels good to be me when I'm actually being me in my own unique blueprint way. So if you feel like you are struggling to liking being yourself, it takes a lot of relaxation and dropping into a different way of thinking about yourself and letting yourself branch out and explore different possibilities of who you are, to let go of all the shoulds, to let go of all the, oh no, what is someone else going to think? Not alleviate it completely, of course. It's still going to come back, but I'm saying you have to give yourself moments throughout the day where you imagine, who would I be if I was raised in a society with parents, teachers, whomever, friends, who were super supportive from the very beginning and saying, yes, these things that you tell me that you love doing are right for you. We want you to be all these weird parts of you. All these quirks are so good for you. It's okay if you have this certain personality trait. We still love you. You can still make yourself into an amazing beautiful version of yourself, even when you are like this, even if you're different from us. Whatever makes you feel good about yourself is the most important thing. And we are here to grow you into this version of yourself that you feel like is custom fit for you. Imagine if that's what your upbringing was telling you. Imagine if that's what you had while growing up, where you had the kind of people around you who got you, who uplifted you, who said, hey, what that person over there said was absolutely ridiculous. They're wrong. You're so cool in your own unique way, and we're going to help you be more of that. Just follow your own interest. See that your own interests are cool when you put your own twist on it. You have to believe that there's something cool within you that's waiting to come out. And when you do, that's how you be your best self. Your best self is not what you put together from everybody else's desires. It's what comes out of you when you let yourself play and exalt in your own unique expressions. Imagine if that's what you were brought up in. And I know for some of us, it can feel like night and day, and it can feel like a fantasy land, and let it be a fantasy land. Start daydreaming again. If you got your ass busted for daydreaming and being too imaginative and too distracted in class because you're doodling, that was wrong. Those things, your imagination, your creativity, your daydreams, that's everything that you need to become the best version of yourself. You just need to turn it inwards and start using it on you. Imagine an upbringing where you were fostered into who you are, where you were allowed to express and explore yourself, and there is no time limit or dates or anything that was supposed to come in. You're supposed to fit a certain standard by, that you are free to just go and still do whatever you need to do in your adult life. But you are now allowed to take some of that energy of freedom and exploration and use it on yourself and find it within yourself. And this is what I help you do. This is literally what I help you do. It's an identity playroom where we talk about all the things that you were never allowed to share with anybody else, that you start off saying, oh my God, this is so weird. This is probably going to sound awful, or this is going to sound so random. And those are the special things that we turn into the special sauce that makes you you, where we see where it all fits into your life, where you don't have to go and live a completely different life. You can incorporate these things into the way that you are already living, but in a way that makes you feel like you. I help you do this. Send me a DM, sign up for a free consult. I help you do this for a whole year so you can become this full version of yourself that knows how to be the you that you love being in any situation in life. And that is my specialty. That is my passion. And that is what I had done my whole life, trying to figure that out. All I wanted to do was just be myself in a way that felt good to me. And I'm still on my journey, but I've come so far, and I want to help you. If you feel like you are in a place that you are stuck, that you're like, well, that sounds great, but there's no way that that would work for me, I want you to open your mind and play within your own realm of possibilities. And I'm here to help you if you need it. All right, everybody. Have an imaginative, playful week, and I'll talk to you on the next podcast next week.